Good morning. My name is Barbara Fuller, and as chair of the board, I welcome you to this virtual December 21st, 2021 working session of the Washtenaw County Board of Road Commissioners. Our communications manager, Emily Kaiser, will describe how our virtual working session operates, how to access the meeting materials, and how you may participate remotely during public participation, but also for the duration of the working session. Emily.
Thanks, Commissioner. So if you would like to make public comment during the public comment portion of this meeting, we will provide instructions and prompt you at the appropriate time in the agenda to virtually raise your hand. This can be done through your computer or your touch-tone phone. The chat feature on the Zoom meeting is available only as technical support for users on their computer or smartphone. If you're experiencing technical issues with audio or video during the meeting, please submit a comment in the chat feature and I will help you troubleshoot. The audio and video of this meeting is being recorded. A link to the video will be posted to wcroads.org in the coming days. If you're a road commissioner or a member of the staff who are having technical issues during the meeting, please contact the IT help desk and they will assist you. Today's meeting agenda is also posted in wcroads.org and there is a link available in the chat. I will add that in just a second if you're joining us from your computer. Thanks, Commissioner.
Thank you, Emily. I will now call this meeting to order and ask Aaron to call the roll.
Chair Barb Fuller.
Barbara Fuller, participating remotely from Scioto Township, Washtenaw County, Michigan.
Vice Chair Rod Green.
Good morning. I'm participating from Scioto Township, Washtenaw County, Michigan, appearing virtually.
Commissioner Doug Fuller.
Doug Fuller is present and attending remotely from Scioto Township, Michigan.
Commissioner Gloria Yamas.
Good morning. I am participating remotely from Scioto Township, Washtenaw County, Michigan.
Commissioner Joanne McCullum.
Good morning. I'm attending remotely from Scioto Township, Washtenaw County, Michigan.
Managing Director Cheryl Siddle.
Present.
Director of Engineering and County Highway Engineer Matt McDonough.
Here.
Director of Operations Jim Harmon.
Present.
And Director of Finance and IT Dan Ackerman.
Here.
Thank you, Aaron. At this point in the working session agenda, we invite public participation. Emily, is there anyone with their hand raised wishing to participate?
At this time, Commissioner, there's no one with a hand raised.
Thank you. We will move on. I'll toss the ball to Cheryl.
Sure. So first thing up this morning, we have two representatives from County Parks here to join us. We have Coy Vaughn, who is the director, and we have Roy Townsend, who is our one of our retired managing directors. And I don't know, have you graduated from County Parks intern there, Roy? But they're here to Coy saying no. So anyways, they're here today to bring us up to speed on the border to border trail. Obviously working with County Parks has been a very positive relationship. We routinely refer to them as the popular kids, but it is with great pleasure that we partner with them. They've got some great projects. We're really proud of the work that they do in Washtenaw County and that we can have a role in helping to facilitate whenever they're working within the county road right of way. So with that, I'd be more than happy to hand it over to Coy and to Roy.
Thank you. And just want to reiterate what Director Siddle said and comment on how wonderful the partnership has been between the Road Commission and Washtenaw County Parks. And thank the Road Commission on behalf of the Parks Commission for this partnership. 21 was another banner year as far as the amount of trail that we are building. And this is all made possible in a big part to the Road Commission. Something we don't take for granted when we look around the state at other counties trying to do the same work. It's very rare to see a Road Commission this active. So we are a model here in Washtenaw County as far as this partnership. And quite frankly, in many counties, the Road Commission is seen as an obstacle to building trails for the parks departments. So we appreciate the partnership, and I'll hand it over to Roy Townsend and he'll talk through the details.
Thank you, Coy. Yeah, we got a little brief PowerPoint, and I guess stop me if you have questions as we go through this. And I would agree with Coy. Obviously, the Parks and the Road Commission, actually, if you go way back, Parks was part of the road commission until like 1973, and I think that's when they separated. I worked the road commission 31 years, but we've had joint projects going way back early 2000s on different things. The Dixboro Bridge was part of the border trail. Section of the North Territorial Bridge in 1995 was part of the trail. So the road commission and parks have go back, 20, 30, 40 years as far as partnerships. So let's go into the slide. Emily, go to the second slide, please. So basically, planning for the future, and then we'll also look at what we've done in the past and where we're going, where we've been and where we're going. Because end of the day, the goal is connecting all of our communities with this non-motorized trail network through the county. And then the spurs that come off that will connect a lot of the other townships and residential areas. This is a section of the border picture to the left of the trail just south of Linden Township Hall. This is actually a little bit of history here. This used to be M92, this trail where the trail is right now. Before M52 was around, it was called M92, which went from, basically north of like Stockbridge all the way down to Chelsea. It was really a curvilinear alignment. In the 1960s, MDOT built M52, and they gave this road, piece of road called Linden Town Hall Road to the road commission in the 60s, became a road. And then in, I think the late 80s or 90s, it was abandoned and it just became a dirt road. It was abandoned next to Linden Township. And then 2 years ago, we converted it to a trail. So it's sort of interesting. This piece of trail has quite a bit of history, and we've used that at quite a few other locations where we like take a piece of old road and turn it back to a trail. So there's just a little history on this little piece of pavement here. So next slide, Emily. So this is a little bit of, like I said, timeline. First segment's the B2B. Actually, late 80s and early 90s, there was talk about a trail, a greenway along Huron River Drive connecting Dexter, Ann Arbor, because that's always been a super popular biking route. So there's some things drawn up. And actually, I remember when I was at the road commission, I was like, in the early 90s, like how is the parks ever going to, put a trail along Huron River Drive? There was barely enough room for a road, let alone a trail. But after, looking and working with the railroad, working with the road commission, working with Metro Parks, the different pieces started coming together. So basically, I said the original alignment was from Wayne County to Livingston County. Then we got incorporated in Iron Bell Trail. And then the road millage pass, which is obviously a great partnership because 20% of the road millage goes to non-motorized. And I think it helps the road commission because people refer to this as sort of non-motorized millage. So the road commission gets 80% of it. Road trails gets 20%, but that helps us leverage federal funds and private funds. So I think we can move on to the next slide. But also what really gave us more momentum statewide is Governor Snyder came up with the idea of creating the Iron Bell Trail, which was from Belle Isle to Ironwood. There's two different trails, the red trail and the blue trail. Blue trail goes through Washtenaw County, which means there's a lot more, some state money that became available. We received about $2 to $3 million in state money to help spear it out in like 2018. And we also made the trail go out through Chelsea up through Stockbridge. So that was when some of that change happened and it went to the Metro Parks. Not all of it will be a paved trail. In Washtenaw County, our goal is to make the Iron Bell Trail all paved, but some portions of it's just a hiking trail as you get further north in the state of Michigan. Next slide. So this is the trail in Washtenaw County. Like I said, originally the trail went from Rawsonville Road in Ypsilanti through city of Ypsilanti, through Ann Arbor, which was basically the original Gallup Park Trail, through Barton Hills, out to Dexter, up Hudson Mills Trail, up to Pinckney. Then about 2015, when the Iron Bell stuff started gaining momentum, and we met with people in Chelsea, it's like, why not go out towards Chelsea, along Dexter Chelsea Road and up M52 and out to Chelsea. So that's where the trail actually extended from Dexter out to Chelsea, up to Stockbridge. And we're still working on the loop that will connect up to Pinckney. So now it's a bigger loop, basically, not just a trail system. Next slide. Yeah, you can keep going. I talked about some of these. These are the different segments that I've actually sort of talked about. And now that, like I said, that is the core of the Iron Bell Trail, which allows us to get access to some state money. And when we apply for DNR trust funds, it gives us a little bit higher priority and federal TAP dollars. Because Iron Bell, like I said, the goal is connecting all the communities. And like Coy said, I also do some work helping HWPI, the nonprofit. So we're trying to get the trail going through Van Buren Township, which is just west of our in Wayne County there. And we have a trail alignment, we got a design, but working with Wayne County roads is very challenging. They are not supportive at all. It's been very challenging because we got alignment, we're getting money, because our goal is if we can get the trail through Van Buren Township, which is Rawsonville to Haggerty Road in Wayne County, about 7 miles, then we'll connect to the Lower Huron and the Metro Parks Trail, which is like 30 miles of trail that goes all the way to Lake Erie. So it's a priority statewide to try to fix, that 7 miles of gap. But like Coy said, some other county road commissions aren't as supportive as Washtenaw has been as far as the trails. Eventually we'll get through it in Wayne County. It's just been more challenging. And like I said, we're hoping to build a couple segments this summer, but it's just very, very challenging. Next slide, Emily. So these are some of the projects we've done the last few years. I'll start up at up near Linden Township. We did a trailhead up there, a trail segment with a tunnel. Can you point up there? I can't. Very good, thank you. Yeah, that's one thing. So that's segment we got finished last year. The next segment south of there, we finished in 2018. That went down to Workner. Then the section from Chelsea to the east towards Dexter, that was done in 2018 also. And that was the first section along the Bolin right of way, in an old railroad right of way that we built. We built some of it this year too. We'll get into that a little bit later. Then the piece in Dexter Huron, which is from Dexter to Zeeb Road. Then we also built a little piece in Delhi Metro Park last year. Also in City of Ann Arbor, piece behind Kellogg Eye Center. And the goal also with the border to border, some of these trails are 40 years old, different segments. The goal is using our millage money and other monies is to keep this trail in very good condition. That section between Riverside Park and Ann Arbor, Kellogg, was in very terrible condition. So we partnered with the city. We put some of our money to rebuild that segment. So now it's in much better condition. Then in Ypsilanti, the same thing. There's a section in Frog Island that was put in like the 80s. It was very narrow, very rough condition. You couldn't, a lot of people didn't even want to use it, didn't feel safe. So we rebuilt that segment in Frog Island, widened it. The city put, City of Ypsilanti put street lights out there, and now it's very popular and it feels safe and it really works well. And then the last piece down by in Ypsilanti Township, we connected segment of Huron North Hydro Park. It was sort of interesting. The township built a trail in North Hydro Park probably 15, 20 years ago, and it sort of stopped. And so when we were out there working, looking at different alignments, I was like, wow, where's this trail supposed to go? So I met with Brenda Stumbo and the township officials. Said, they end up getting the land, which was supposed to be a developer that went, they got a tax sale. So we met with the township. And we connected a piece that went from North Hydro up to Grove Road, and we took Grove Road all the way out to Rawsonville. So the border to border trail, which is basically from Wayne County up to Livingston County, now it goes to Jackson County. We got to our first border last year by finishing that segment, and we were able to connect in North Hydro Park and part of that. So that was some of the work we've done the last few years, 2018 through 2020. Next slide. In 2021, we're working on quite a few different segments too. Starting out in Chelsea, we're working on the piece from Vets Park. There's like 3 parks there: Vets Park, Weber Park, and Timbertown. They'll connect us. Chelsea goes through those parks, and actually that part we got finished. Got the concrete work all done this year to Sibley Road. Then it's going up Sibley Road, up along M52 to connect to Workner Road. And at that point, the trail will be connected from Chelsea all the way up to North Territorial where the trailhead is, which is nearly 7 miles of continuous trail that'll be built out there in Chelsea. The next piece along Dexter Chelsea Road is another piece that was built on the Bolin, portions of the Bolin right of way. And it was sort of interesting. There's always a little bit of debate. The Mr. Bolin, he acquired a lot of this land in 1903 and 1904. And there's always debate, did he ever build any of it? And I've been working out here and noticing, he's done some fills, done some cuts. And one of his designs for his interurban rail line was, most of them back in 1910 and 1890s, was there was overhead electric. He decided to go underground with the electricity because these are electric rail lines. And we found numerous locations where the conduit was out there. It was about an 8-inch steel pipe still out there. And actually one segment we're going to dictate, put a marker out there because the conduit's still there right next to where the trail is. It's out of the ground. And it's just sort of interesting. So like something, over 120 years ago, with this person had a vision, in it connecting Chelsea to Jackson to Dexter to Ann Arbor. At the same time, Henry Ford car became popular. So the interurbans, sort of went away. But it's a little piece of history that, still is out there. This alignment was graded. I mean, we found a lot of different things that he did, but it just never completely got built, this segment. But the trail where we built it, you can see the conduit that he put in, 8-inch steel pipe. So the next piece, going to the east, Zeeb to Delhi. We're hoping to have that under construction this year. We're still waiting to get a permit from MDOT and Amtrak. Getting permits from all the agencies can be very challenging. We're hoping to get that done in 21. We're hoping, in 22, we're hoping to get it done this year, but we'll get through that. The next section in the city of Ann Arbor is a section in Gallup Park. This was probably one of the worst pavement conditions of the border to border. So here again, we partnered with the city of Ann Arbor and HWPI, our nonprofit, and we rebuilt that section of Gallup Park in the city from Gallup Park Bridge to Mitchell Bridge. And like I said, all the segments this year, we bid out asphalt and concrete. And the concrete option on our 2 phases were actually cheaper. The one in Gallup was about 5% more, but the city elected to go with concrete. Concrete's a lot longer, durable product. It just made sense to do it. And people ask, well, how is that even possible? I think a lot of it is asphalt prices have gone up substantially. And when you're doing these trail segments, it's not like paving a road where they bring out the big trucks and the flow boys and the large pavers, and they put down thousands of tons of asphalt and they make money doing it by quantity. This is a lot of handwork. So the concrete and asphalt becomes similar, and the big paving guys really don't want to deal with these trails because it's hard to get their equipment in there. So the concrete ones become very competitive and end up with a better product that's going to last a long time. And then the last one was in Ypsilanti Township. Whoops, sorry about that. In Grove Road over I-94, and we have some slides on that. But here again, the unique thing about this border trail is we're not only just connecting this trail with a non-motorized, we're connecting communities. And sort of interesting, when the freeway system went in, interstate system, the goal of the interstate system was to connect all the cities, which, Ann Arbor to Detroit, to Ypsilanti, to Jackson, and, Chicago, and, all the whole interstate system. But by doing that, they also divided a lot of the communities because they put in the freeway system, and the bridges really were not set up for pedestrians or non-motorized people to walk or bike across them. So our goal at County Parks is trying to connect these communities together. And another thing we've had at County Parks is a Connecting Communities program where our network is, the core is the border to border, but also, starting, in Ypsilanti, we worked with Ypsilanti Township to put a trail that goes around Ford Lake and to the south. In Superior Township, we're working with them to go up Prospect Road, to connect Prospect Road coming down to Ypsilanti. In Ann Arbor Township, we have the trail, the Mathai Trail that goes up along Dixboro. It's eventually going to get to the hamlet of Dixboro. So all these things are coming together. Even in Saline and Pittsfield Township, connecting communities, some of the first ones were along Lore Road and Textile Road, which goes over to Platte Road. Platte Road takes you up to the border. Dexter, the same thing. We're working with them on their trail that goes south towards the high school. Scioto, Zeeb Road Trail, which will take you down to Zeeb Road and Zeeb Road along to Jackson Road. And then the same thing up in northern part in Dexter Township, where the trail network is the what we call the Northwest Passage, which will go from Hudson Mills to Peach Mountain to Silver Lake, up to Hell, up to Lakelands Trail. Then way out west, we working with the state to connect the DTE mountain bike trails with the trail system that go from our trailhead out there in Linden Township to Silver Lake, the Potawatomi Trail, which will also connect back to Silver Lake. So at the end of the day, we have a trail network, so like the core of the B2B, but we're working with connecting communities to connect all the other communities that might not be directly on the border, but how they can provide access to the border. Next slide, Emily. So this is just some of the projects we've worked on. The top one is a slide in Dexter Huron. The next one is in Frog Island, where we reconstructed that. Same thing, 2 years ago, we bid that out as asphalt trail. Doan Concrete Construction got the bid, and I asked them, give me a price in concrete. And they're like, we can do it in concrete for the same price. So here again, Frog Island was the first one. We ended up switching that to concrete, and people really loved it. And the last slide down at the bottom is a section behind Linden Township Hall, where we have a wall wrapping around. End of the day, we're building generally 3 to 5 miles of new trail each year. So we're getting there. The total is 55 miles. We've got 41 miles done. So hopefully before I retire from county parks, we'll be done with this by 2025. That's what Coy keeps saying, bro. You got to get this thing done. I started with a 2-year contract. I didn't get it done my first 2 years. I'm on my second 2-year contract. I probably won't get it done my second 2-year contract, but hopefully maybe my third 2-year contract, we'll get all these communities connected. Next slide. And how we've been able to
Hey, Roy,
make this.
it looks like Commissioner Fuller has a question.
Okay, sorry. Go ahead, Barb.
That's all right. Emily, please back up one slide. Roy, tell us what is underneath the writing here. I mean, that's a very interesting picture that's easy to just not pay attention to.
Underneath the right. Oh,
It's the
sorry.
tunnel.
Yeah,
It's
that's
the tunnel.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
I missed over that. So basically, yeah, the trail along 52, and actually this is Alan, Alan took this drone picture for us. So basically along the 52 trail, in the second phase, we were supposed to have a crossing of M52. The people, some of the business owners and residents in Chelsea are like, we don't really want to cross 52 at grade. It's like, well, it's $1 million. We're not going to be able to build a tunnel. And sure enough, we partnered with the business owners and HWPI, and they raised $1 million. We closed M52 and put in this tunnel that connected the trail. And so now people, you don't have to cross M52. You go through this nice tunnel, and I have some slides later. So yeah, in the background, that's the tunnel under construction. In spring of last year, it was sort of interesting. In 2020, everything, some things got shut down. A lot of road construction didn't get shut down. So we shut down M52 when there really wasn't much traffic on M52 because everything was closed down. And then we opened it back up because at first, like, can we build it? Can we do it? Can't we? And so like it was decided to go with it, which worked out just fine because most people really weren't impacted because people were staying home. This is in spring of 2020. So yeah, Barb, thank you. It's easy to overlook that in the background. You can go ahead. So how are we able to do all this? What we've been able to do is take some money from county parks, private money, which is HWPI, in grants. And also included in that parks money is road millage money that we receive. Like I said, about 1.1 million of it goes to trail segments. So that's what we try to do, leverage the grants. And actually that's how we are successful getting federal and state grants, because we have matching dollars. So many times communities like, oh, well, we'd like to get this TAP money or trust money, but you find the local money, it's like, they don't have the local money. And we try to keep ahead of it because we're designing projects into the, future projects. So when these grants become available, it's like, yeah, and obviously a track record showing that, you built these segments and you know how to do it helps you also with the points. So we're able to leverage quite a bit of federal funds and state partners. And here again, hats go off to the road commission because TAP money has to go through the road commission. That's just the way the federal rules require. So you guys are a great partner. You guys, oversee those projects, assist us, because that's when they get complicated, when you get federal funds involved. Excuse me. I'm sorry about that. But yeah, you guys, obviously you built, hundreds of federal aid projects, and being a partner, it's like, okay, yeah, you guys are willing to oversee that part of it. We assist with that, paying the consultants or you guys making those happen. But at the end of the day, you end up with trails, and you can see, the trail and the picture here at the top, that's the Dexter, that's a section from along M52, popular cyclists, popular walkers, and here we are paving that same segment. And down 2021, the same thing, private money, parks money, and grant money is how we're paying for these projects.
Roy, Commissioner Fuller has her hand up again.
Sure.
So Roy, one of the early skeptics of doing a trail, a non-motorized trail, suggested nobody would use it. And I think that there are counters out there somewhere that would refute that. I don't recall if you've got any numbers in here about utilization of the trail.
Yeah, I think that's my second to last slide.
Is
Yeah.
it? Okay.
Bob, I think I remember that same person
Yeah.
sitting in one of those chairs that you guys sit in,
Yes.
telling me that some of these trails would never be used. But sure enough, I mean, for one, they've always been sort of popular in Washtenaw County. Obviously last year they just exploded because people really couldn't get out. The only thing they could get out is, to walk on trails because they're stuck at home. But even without that, they've been popular. And we have counters and along in Dexter, we have counters and along in Scioto Township, we're putting a counter, and these are permanent counters in Chelsea and also in Gallup Park. So we'll have year-round counts on these. There's also counters down in Pittsfield Township. And then we also work with Watts, and they go out and take counts for us, and we're getting some counters too, just to show, and that helps with the grant funding too, because people are like, okay, you're building these, are people using them? And the numbers we're showing is probably 1 million to 2 million people a year using these trail segments. It's really sort of hard to get a handle on it, but they are being used.
And then,
well, thank you.
A follow-up would be to describe the maintenance fund that was a requirement, I believe, of HWPI's investment in these projects, that there is a set aside that's been created to make sure these trails are maintained in perpetuity.
Yes, so working with HWPI, they've put up $20,000 a mile. We've matched that parks with $20,000 a mile, and we're setting up, we're not really calling it an endowment, we're calling it a special revenue fund. So like they did for open space. So in the future, there'll be money for maintenance on these trails. If in the future, things change at the parks or whatever, and it becomes a lower priority, we're setting up money today for the future so they are maintained. And our goal is to keep these in, very good condition. The question we haven't really completely addressed is winter maintenance. Some segments in the city of Ann Arbor do get winter maintenance. There's some segments in Pittsfield Township get winter maintenance, some in Ypsilanti Township and Ypsi City. We aren't quite there yet as far as getting winter maintenance on all of it. But as far as the routine stuff, mowing, taking care of dead tree, taking care of that stuff, taking care of the pavement, yes, we're definitely doing that. But the winter maintenance, I think as this eventually all gets connected, because people not only use this for recreation, people use this as a commuter. I mean, that's how some people get to work. That's how some people get to school. That's how people, so as it becomes like a year round, I think there'll be more push to make it a winter maintenance on these trails too. Does that answer your question?
Yep, and that fund is protected. It can't be rated for other purposes, right? I mean, there was a very deliberate structuring of this special revenue fund to make sure it endured for the purpose that it was
Correct.
established for.
Exactly. Just like there was one for the open space preservation, same thing with this. It's set aside for trails. So only money can only be used for trail maintenance. And I think long-term goal funding too is, obviously, I'm sure the road commission is interested in the countywide road millage. I think we'd be a proponent of keeping, a slice of that for parks. So we maintain these trails in good condition and continue to connect other communities, other portions of the county to the border and connecting communities. So I think that's going to be another thing that will continue to, the BOC downtown is when the countywide road millage comes up for renewal in 24, that we'd be and had it, 24 and 28 and 32, keep that in front of the voters, because not only helps, roads, it's essential keeping our roads in, great condition, but it's also essential for keeping these trails in, really good condition and can continue to expand this network and have money to maintain it. So.
Yeah, Roy, most of the federal grants that you are receiving do have a requirement that as part of the agreement that there will be an entity responsible for ongoing upkeep and maintenance of the trail system as well. And I think that what that is also recognizing is the importance of not just building them, but of maintaining them in the future as well. So it's nice to see that County Parks is obviously taking that seriously.
Yep. Well, thank you.
And Commissioner Green has his hand up.
Sure.
Thank you. Hi, Roy. You suggested that at least when it comes to trails, that concrete and asphalt were competitive sometimes. What's the life expectancy of concrete versus asphalt?
Asphalt roads generally, 15 to 20 years. Sometimes you'll get 30 out of an asphalt trail. A concrete pavement, generally you're going to see 40 to 50 years. I always say, if you live in an urban area, I used to live in Ann Arbor, and the road I lived on was rebuilt like twice. The sidewalks are still just fine. And so sidewalks are generally going to outlive the road pavement surface at least 2 times, maybe 3 times. And when they end up being the same price, or actually concrete being cheaper, it was a really easy decision to switch it over to concrete. And the other thing about concrete, if there's a bad section, like you just fix that one area that's bad, a 10-foot, they call a flag, a 10 by 10, just fix that and keep, everything else is good. Generally, once hot mix asphalt starts going, you have to replace the whole thing. So that's why we're going to continue to bid them both concrete and HMAs, and the other thing is making them competitive, so you're bidding against the two agencies of people, that contractors that help sharpen the pencil. And actually it was sort of interesting, the Michigan Concrete Paving Association reached out to us, said because they heard about it, and we may actually be sharing this with other people in the state, because it's sort of like, really, it's really cheaper. It's like, yes, it is cheaper and it lasts longer. And we saw cut the joints, because like on the sidewalk, you get that done. You saw cut it, it's a smooth ride, and people are like, oh, this is great. So we, people actually enjoyed it. And we did the first one on in Dexter Huron Trail, because it was between 2 bridges. We thought we're never going to be able to get back to put the asphalt back in. So we switched it out to concrete, because concrete, we can go up, like I said, fix certain areas without having to do the whole thing. So that's what we started looking at. It's like, we should look at doing concrete more often. So that's where we're going on a lot of these trails, at least bidding them both ways. But I think we're probably going to see concrete being more cost efficient for the next 5 or 10 years anyways.
Thank you.
Next slide. Looking forward, like I said, we're nearly 80% complete. We have 10 miles, and some of these are very challenging 10 miles. The section between Dexter to Ann Arbor, some of it's like $4 million a mile. And we're also working with the city of Ann Arbor to build a tunnel that's going to go under from, it'll connect Vandermeer Park, which is basically where M14 goes over Main Street in the Huron River. Underneath there is called Vandermeer Park. And on the other side is called Barton Nature Area. So we're hoping to build a tunnel, working with the city to connect those. That tunnel is probably about $5 million, just that one tunnel. The slide to the, on the upper left is when we were installing the bridge in Dexter, Huron. There's 2 cranes. It was pretty interesting. I know there's a few members of the road commission staff out there, just how they use barges to get that bridge across there and set it in place. And there's another drone picture, thanks to Alan. And then this is just a parking lot out in Linden Township on a typical Saturday. When we were designing this, we had it designed for 55 cars maximum. And at first we were debating, do we just build half of it at 26? Then we said, well, let's just build the whole thing. And thankfully we paved all 50 spots, because you can see on a typical weekend how popular it is. It generally does fill up. And that's where Barbie said, establish a special revenue fund. That was happened last year. And I think Coy and Jason Brooks, we just put money into it this month. So we got that rolling. So in the future, we'll continue to put money into that maintenance fund for long term. Next slide. So this is looking ahead what we have coming up in 22 through 26. Starting up at the north west part of the county. We'll probably next year hopefully do another piece from North Territory up the Boyce Road, which is about 1.5 miles. We're going to split that into 2 phases. Then we'll probably go from Boyce through Jackson County to Stockbridge is another phase. We're probably trying to figure out how we do a TAP grant, which is a Transportation Alternative Program through 3 counties, which would be Washtenaw County, Jackson County, and Ingham County. I'm not sure, we haven't done that. Maybe someone has, but just trying to figure out how we can make that so it connect right into Stockbridge. Then completing the section between Lima Center and Dancer, then in Dexter connecting from Wiley to Parker, and then going from Parker into the city of Dexter. So we've been working with the city of Dexter, and some of you may be familiar with the Bell Road Bridge, this historic bridge we took off just north of North Territorial in Dexter Township. We took it down 2 years ago. I think it's still up in Charlotte being stored. Our goal is, the city of Dexter is pretty excited potentially of using that Bell Road Bridge as a crossing of Mill Creek, because now the Bell Road Bridge, which is about 103 feet long, no longer will span the Huron River. So we need to find a spot that we can place it. So it's sort of interesting. The Bell Road Bridge was brought to the community, this area, in 1890s by a gentleman by Judge Dexter. So he was involved with it. So to bring it back to Dexter would be sort of interesting. So we're hopeful we can get that. It's probably 2023 to do the connection into Dexter. Then moving further down the river, connecting from Delhi Metro Parks to Wagner. We have funding for it. There's some right-of-way concerns we're trying to work through. A gentleman owns land out there, excuse me. And we've been trying to work with him actually for the last 10 years. A gentleman, Mr. Chloian, but he owns this land and he thinks it's worth millions and millions of dollars. And it's really not, because it's sort of landlocked. But we'll work through there. Then, continue to march our way. The last piece, one of the last most expensive pieces, is a section between Wagner, the Maple. If you're familiar out there, the river gets wide. There's no room to put a trail in the road. So you got to cross the river, go out onto this island, the Oxbow area, and then cross the river again. But that one segment, which is about a mile long, could be $8 to $12 million long, $12 million in cost. So we'll probably save that to the last thing in 2025 or 2026. And then the next section from Maple into Barton Nature area of sections along the river, that's relatively straightforward. It's along Huron River Drive between Huron River Drive and Railroad and the river. And then the one I talked about, the Vandermeer Tunnel, and then in the city of Ann Arbor, just rebuilding segments there. And then in Ypsilanti, connecting pieces in Ypsilanti City. Our goal is around Eastern Michigan. The trail goes through the campus, but it's not real straightforward. So we're working with the city and EMU to connect that to make it more straightforward. And actually the project this year on Forest, the city's redoing the bridge on Forest, right at the north end of Frog Island. So we'll partner with them to hopefully extend that out from Forest out to Huron Street. So that's some of the things we have coming up. We're getting closer, like I said, filling
Roy?
these gaps. Go ahead.
Roy, I'm sorry. Commissioner McCollum has her hand up.
Sure. Thank you,
Hi.
Cheryl.
Yes, Roy, I was
Thanks,
going
Fran.
to ask about the anticipation of the cost of things to go up, like you said, around Barton Hills, that one, which would be 8 to 12
Mhm.
million. Do you, in that, doing that last, do you anticipate that will stay around the same, or is that what you think it will be in 2026?
Yeah, we think that's what the number is going to be in 2026 or 2025. But obviously some things you control, but the price of certain, like last year when the price of lumber went, through the roof, who knows what's going to happen between now and then. With the price of concrete, the price of asphalt, the price of steel, some things you don't control. But that's what we think it should be. And like I said, hopefully we'll probably try to get federal funds to close that last piece. But yeah, those are some of the challenges. I mean, it's no different than in road construction or, what's the price of limestone going to be next year? Different things, you're trying to budget and you can try to do the best you can with, what we have. So, but we're fairly confident. We've built, quite a few segments to date. So, but thank you for the question.
Okay.
So next slide. Oh, then also the piece, I did talk about this already, but we call this the Northwest Passage. So basically, like I said, in 1995, when we were rebuilding the North Territorial Bridge, the Road Commission partnered with Huron Clinton Metro Parks because they wanted to put a trail on the other side of the Metro Park and connect it into Dexter. And even back then, we were like, okay, that makes sense. So we put widen the bridge, and now there's a walkway on the south side of that bridge. And there's a walkway underneath the bridge on the east side that connects going to the north. What we're looking at potentially doing is putting another walkway underneath the west side of the bridge. They could go up along the river and cross into Peach Mountain, which we're working with U of M. U of M owns Peach Mountain and Stinchfield Woods. Use some of that land, get out to Silver Lake, get into Livingston County. We're working, we're talking with Livingston County Road Commission using some of their roads. Go through this to the City of Hell, and then there's some U of M and state property as you go up. I think it's Kelly Road all the way up to the Lakelands Trail. This trail, for the most part, is probably looking at not paved, but a soft surface road, either a limestone or a crushed HMA that we've used because it's about a quarter of the cost of a paved trail. And we probably wouldn't use federal funds, so it could be a little narrower. Rather than 10 feet wide, we could make it 8 feet wide because the demand probably won't be there. I guess in the future, if we want to pave what we could, but in the meantime, trying to get this done. So we've started some design work on that, trying to connect Hudson Mills, like I say, up to Stinchfield Woods, up to Silver Lake. And then those two circles, like I said, where it says picnic recreation area, like I said, we're working with the DNR that can put a trail that goes on the Potawatomi Trail that connect to the trail at Linden Township Hall. And they received some funding and there's some approvals. So there's a good chance probably in the next 3 years that those trails will be connected from Pinckney Rec area to Waterloo Recreation area with a trail system. Some will be on road, some will be on trails. It's a combination of things. And then here again, that'll be a gravel trail too. That's not going to be paved. But it'll be a way for mountain bikers to connect DT Mountain Bike Trails Network to the Potawatomi Trail Network. So here again, those trail networks up in that part of the county, they bring in people from Ohio, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, Illinois. People from all over the country come to these trails for mountain biking in this part of the county. So it's sort of interesting to see not only the paved trails, but the mountain bike trails that we have here in Washtenaw County. Next slide. So this is some of the stuff that I mentioned, the M52 Trailhead that we opened. We had ribbon cutting. Also, some of you may have worked with Robert Teetons. The trailhead was named after him this October. So that's the sign that we just put up there. And that's the trail. And actually in 2020, when Bob left UATS and went to trail, went to parks, it was sort of his vision on the border trail. So it's sort of interesting that, be able to, recognize his interest and his dream. It's all sort of coming together and tying things together with this border trail. So and he lives up in that area. So it was a complete surprise. Coy was able to pull that thing off, and he wasn't even aware until he got there that day, and we revealed the sign. It was for him. So it was a pretty nice little gesture. Next slide. So this is the tunnel that we showed the aerial photos. So not only we put this tunnel in, with the nonprofit, we were able to do architectural improvements. So this is all the steel there, the stuff that looks rusty. It's called Core 10 steel. And the picture on the upper left is Stouffer Hill. Stouffer Hill is the second highest hill in Washtenaw County, and it's just north of here. So those are actually contour lines cut into the Core 10 steel that we hung on the wall. And then we did all the stone work inside, the stone masons. That's all cut stone. We're out there for like 2 months in 2020. They actually put a camper out there and were living out there for a while. And they did all that stone work in the tunnel. Then also we had a donor donate this statue. It's Native American women. What's this? I'm trying to remember what it says. Dedicated to the women of Michigan. Is that what it says, Coy? Do you recall? Something like that. But it's pretty impressive statue. She overlooks Green Lake, and the women of Native Americans, they actually did look at taking care of the waters. So it's pretty touching to go out there. So if you ever get a chance, you can walk there from Linden Township or also from the south. So that's our trail and statue that we finished up last year. Next slide. This is a section in Delhi Bridge in the background and the trail. I took this picture, and this family, they have, I think there's 6 or 7 people. This bike fits like 4 people. Then they pull 2 kids in that stroller. So this person, the guy designed this bike, and he does quite a bit of riding. And actually, one of your employees, I think he's related to Nate Murphy, one of your bridge engineers. I talked to Nate, and he's like, "Oh yeah, that's my brother-in-law." I think is what the connection is. But they're out there riding all along Huron River Drive. So this is at Skips, connecting Skips into the trail through there. So we got that done last year. Next slide. This is a section we're completing this year in Chelsea and Dexter, Chelsea. The slide to the upper right is the original Beach Farm. Mrs. Beach passed away last year, and 2 years ago, HWPI and a private funder bought all 80 acres of the farm so we could put the trail through this land, and was subdivided and sold in the lot. So this is the trail. There's the barn up there, the white barn into the background. It's all concrete. Then the bottom left, that's the trail that this area was cut out by Mr. Boland. And down there, as the trail does look like a wigwag to the right, that's where that conduit is sticking out of the ground that he put in for his electrical rail system, electrical interurban rail line. And the top left is a trail segment in the city of Chelsea. This is at Timbertown Park, as it winds around to connect all the parks. So we partnered with the city of Chelsea. They're a partner on that. So that work is done, but we haven't done north of Chelsea. North of Sibley up to work, that'll be done next spring. Next slide. This is a project I talked about in Gallup Park. Gallup Park was actually one of the first trails along the river in the late 70s, but the trail was in terrible condition. We partnered with the city. And they bid it both ways, as asphalt and concrete, and they decided to go with concrete. This one, the concrete was like 5% more, but it was our recommendation, their recommendation to go with it. The top slide on the top right is they had some ADA benches set out there, but they really couldn't get to them. So they put this piece of sidewalk so people could actually get to the benches in the future. And this is a bench down at the bottom, and it's just how it winds around. So that got open 2 weeks ago as we finished that up. Next slide. This is in Ypsilanti City and Ypsilanti Township. This first one is Frog Island that we completed last year. Then the bottom one on the left is where we went into North Hydro Park. And the top one, top right, that's where we did the ribbon cutting, because like I said, this is Grove Road Bridge over I-94. And if you look at the picture, you can see there was an old concrete walkway on the bridge, but it was pretty narrow, 6 feet wide. It didn't feel real safe. And then there's no way for people in wheelchairs to get up onto the bridge because it wasn't ADA compliant. So we partnered with MDOT in the city, widened the walkway from 6 feet to 14 feet, restriped the road so there's bike lanes on the road. And so that's Representative Peterson out there, Jason Morgan, Brenda Stumbo, representative cities. So end of the day, like I said, this is a prime example. You know, the interstate system was great connecting cities, but it divided communities. Because I mean, this is Grove Road. You know, people in the city really couldn't get to the township safely. And the same thing in Huron over I-94. I mean, that's been a project. And actually, the MDOT's going to finally reconnect that next year with a trail, with a walking path. Because on that one, people have to walk down the center of the road to get from the city of Ypsilanti to the township. So same thing. I think there was oversight, you know, interstate systems like, yeah, let's connect everything, but no one really considered, well, not everyone in these communities drive everywhere. So that's sort of the huge assumption that I think MDOT tends to make, that everyone has a car. Well, not everyone has a car. Some people walk. When I was out there building the section in Grove Road, people every day walk and bike to school, to work. That's how they get there. So I think, you know, they're pretty pleased when we finally made this safer and ADA compliant to connect Ypsilanti City to Ypsilanti Township. So they were pretty excited. So the next slide. This is a trail, not part of the border, but here again, this is where we're connecting communities. So this is Watkins Lake in Manchester Township. And the goal of this trail is going to connect this village of Manchester to Watkins Lake State Park and County Preserve, and all the way to the community of Brooklyn in Jackson County. So this is an old rail line. This is a rail line that went from Ypsilanti to Saline, through Bridgewater, out through Manchester, out to Brooklyn. Part of it was bought years ago by county, like 5 or 6 years ago. And then another piece between Austin and Sharon Hollow was just bought last year. So Coy approached me. It's like, think we can build a trail out there? So Pete and I walked out there. Pete Sanderson and I do the trails. It's like, yeah, we can do this. So we bid it out, and we bid it here again. We bid it 2 ways, one with crushed limestone and one with crushed HMA. So I went up to Kent County. They have like 30 or 40 miles of these crushed HMA trails. And crushed HMA is basically when you take millings, you process it and you get it down to 3/8. So basically the size of a eraser, pencil eraser. So it's really fine. And you put that out. So we bid it both ways. Crushed HMA was about 40% less than the limestone, because this is sort of a byproduct. So here's a truck, you know, dumping it out and compacting it. The bottom slide is showing, you know, after we got it, you know, the gravel down. It's a beautiful trail. And then some of the first users, we had a storm and some of the fences got knocked down. So one day I went out there, there's cattle using the trail. So I had to take a picture of this cattle on our trail in Manchester. It's only fitting. We did get a hold of the farmer. He got the cattle back into the farm, into the thing, but it's sort of interesting. The poor cattle, I think it was lost, like, where am I going? So it was sort of interesting.
Gave him a path home.
Yeah, exactly. Gave him a path home. So
Commissioner Green has his hand up.
sure, go ahead.
Yeah, right. Does the HMA have any drawbacks or liabilities, or?
No, I mean, it's a stable material. So it's not like it's going to leach out. A lot of people have used it for parking lots. I know when I was at the road commission, some people were like, oh, can't you use it for roads? it doesn't really work for roads just because it will tighten up sometimes, because as it gets hot, it will tighten back up. But then when a pothole forms, the road graders really can't grade it very well. For trails, it works just fine. I guess we're experimenting. I've heard some people like, some people really like it. Some people are not as fond. So we're trying this. Obviously, the trail down here is not as busy as the trail up in, the border up in the higher population areas. But we were able to build this trail for like $150,000, $200,000 a mile, which is, quite a bit less than $1 million we're spending up on the border. So end of the day, I think this will be a work on trails that aren't as popular and don't get, quite as much bike traffic, foot traffic. And it's stable. And like I said, Kent County's been using this product for like 5 or 10 years. I gave a presentation and the guy said, hey, have you considered this? So I went up there and looked at it. It's like, oh, they have like 20 some miles in Kent County of this material. Like I said, this material, to buy it, you buy it at the asphalt plants is like $8 a ton versus limestone, which is like $12 to $15 a ton. So it's quite.
So it's for our trails to get more cow traffic, right? Right.
Yeah, it's better for cow traffic, exactly.
Well, I don't know. The horses get wandering around out here now and then too. So you got to be ready.
You're ready, exactly.
Hey, Roy,
Okay. Yep, go ahead.
how about county parks buying a small herd of buffalo and turning them loose to live on that trail out there? Seems like it would liven people up quite a little bit. I'm
I
thinking
like the idea. I'm sure Coy would be less enthusiastic than I am, but hey, let's try it.
Yeah. I just wrote that one down.
thank
Is
you.
that the new definition of multimodal?
Yep.
Commissioner Green, did you put your hand back up?
Yes. So how does that trail hold up for things like bicycle usage? Is it effective for that?
Yeah, it's good. Here again, it is a soft surface. So if you had a road bike with a very narrow tires, it's probably not going to be ideal. But actually the DNR, they've almost stopped building paved trails because they don't think they're going to have the money to maintain paved trails into the future, where soft surface is a lot cheaper to maintain. So it works just fine. Like the Cal Haven trail that goes from Kalamazoo to South Haven or Grand Haven, South Haven, is a crushed limestone. So a lot of the trails on the state network are soft surface. So we're just trying this crushed HMA to see, if people like it or not. I guess at the end of the day, we could put crushed limestone over the top of this if people like, but they've been using it in Kent County and other places. So I think it's a very viable solution in the long term that gets us efficient. It's actually very economical and environmentally, because we're reusing a byproduct that really is just, sitting, some places just being wasted. So here again, we can use something that and put it back out there. Barb, you had a question?
Yeah. On the Watkins Lake Trail, there's a little triangle of property that didn't get purchased right there on Austin Road. And I was wondering if there are any plans or aspirations to acquire that so that there's a staging area for people. And also want to point out, once this is completed between Brooklyn and Manchester, this is a real economic infusion for those communities. We have folks that will, shop, have coffee, whatever in Manchester in a way that just doesn't happen right now. So in addition to connecting communities, it's creating an economic boost for the communities that it does connect as well. But I'm interested in that triangle of property as a staging area.
Yeah. First to follow up, we worked with the township and the village, and they're really excited to see, because there's been talk about something happening down here. So when we acquired this land, and I said, think we can get something done this year? I said, yeah, let's get something done to spearhead, because there's been talk about connecting Watkins Lake to Village of Manchester for a while. So it's like, no, we can do this, and we've given the village some more money to connect their trail out to I think Grossman, eventually trying to get Grossman all the way out to Austin. So the village officials and the township officials are super excited. Like you said, Barb, they'll bring people from, you know, because Manchester, I've obviously been down there building this trail. I love Manchester. It's a great community. And I think people are like, wow, this is in Watkins Lake State Park and Preserve. It's gorgeous down there. And I think a lot of people from the county and outside the county aren't even aware of it. So it will bring, you know, hopefully bring more people down there and, you know, use those businesses. As far as that triangle, the parks end up pulling that out. The gentleman, Mr. Dreyer, is the guy's name. He's a really nice guy. He collected a lot of junk over time. So there's like half done, a lot of things that are half done out there, like half motorhome and cars and salvage, all kinds. And, you know, because we used that to get through there, and he was really nice to let us go through there. And as I went through there, it's like, oh, I mean, it's like a mini junkyard. Not quite a junkyard, but there's a lot of stuff that he's collected over the years. So the challenge would be you'd have to clean that whole site up before we could use it. So I think that's why we ended up not purchasing that. Our goal, though, is to find somewhere to build a parking lot down there for staging, because that's one challenge on these old rail line corridors. There's really not areas, because it's about 100-foot wide. So it's where do people park? We are working with the community church on Sharon Hollow. We've been in contact with them. I think they're going to maybe let people park there. So we'll let people know people can park there at least as a temporary basis. Because right now, you're right, it's pretty challenging as far as finding somewhere to park. But that gentleman's property might be more challenging than it's worth. Trying to clean up all the stuff that he's collected over the years. So I think that's the challenge for that lot. So does that help, Barb? Okay. Next slide. This is just talking about our funding and beyond. The 1/3 parks, 1/3 private, 1/3 grants. I think we went over a lot of this already. The next slide. This just talks about by the numbers. This the slide to the, the graph to the left, it shows the parks has done surveys, and at the top, paved trails, unpaved trails are always at the top. And this is a countywide survey that was done in 2018, I believe, Coy. And you can see people in Washtenaw County want trails. And it was sort of interesting. This when we did it last time, we broke it up into different regions. So it's not like people say, oh, that's just people in Ann Arbor. No, we got data from the Southwest, Northwest, Northeast, every area. And same thing, people wanted trails in, countywide. And the same thing, if you look at a statewide basis or nationwide basis, this is not that much different. People want trails, sort of linear paths that connect, get them from places to place. And sometimes it's transportation. And then the information on the right sort of shows us the counter in Dexter averages 250,000 passes. In 2020, we had 425 passes. And part of it was not even working February through May. So it was an increase of 120%, likely more than a million. I'd say it's probably way over 1 million people when you add a number of people. Like I said, some people use these trails every day to get to work. And I think with the goal that the county is trying to do, reduce carbon footprint, zero emissions, it's going to be more important that, give people options as far as how they can get to and from work safely and environmentally sensitive ways, reduce our carbon footprint, and just the recreation value. Here again, when we're looking at these trails, we not only look at that, but we also try to make the trail as interesting as possible. We try to, the trail might not be a direct north, south, east, west trail. It may wind through, and someone was just telling me the trail we just built in the city of Chelsea from Sibley to Betts Park has like 16 curves. There's no straight sections. That's sort of by design. You're trying to take in, go around, save trees, go around, wetlands, and wind it through the area to make it more interesting trail. And that's what I think, end of the day, that's what people appreciate. It's the experience. People can get there, in the serious cyclist will still be using here in River Drive, Dexter, Chelsea, because they're out to the ride, 50, 60, 70 miles. So they probably don't want to be slowed down. But the families and the other people are going to be out there using our trails and just want to get out there and go 5 miles or walk 3 miles or something like that. So that's information. People are using these trails all over the county. I think the last slide is just a closing. Oh, one more thing. We have updated the B2B logo. Couple reasons. One was this we can use as a stencil. So actually we put some stencils on the trail. And then we also have our website, and also we're working with here on Waterloo Pathway. We have the b2b.org trail, b2btrail.org is our website now. So people can go there sharing information. So I think that's our last one. You can sort of see the logo here. If you go to the last slide, you'll see what the old logo. That's a one before where the B2B was with the river, but you couldn't do that as a stencil. We just tried to modernize it. So with that, any questions, or if Coy, if you want to add anything that I may have missed?
No, I think you covered everything very well. Thank you.
Barb?
I would just like to acknowledge that, first of all, thank you to Coy and Roy for coming and doing this presentation, but also to thank Commissioner Doug Fuller, who raised the suggestion of having a presentation about the non-motorized facilities in the county as part of a working session. So thank you, Doug, for making that suggestion. I think it was a great idea, and I appreciate receiving an update on this work that I think we can capitalize on when it comes time to renew the millage going forward as well, based on the survey that Parks has done indicating how strongly people feel about spending money on these trails. So when it comes time to look at who votes in support or not support of a road millage, this is something that will be useful going forward. I'd also like people to think about, is it possible to establish the road and non-motorized millage as a millage in perpetuity, much as the, isn't it the Huron Metro Park Authority has a millage that never expires? I don't know how they did that, but I like it a lot.
Yeah, I mean, here in the metro parks, that was legislation did that, and that's how it was set. The one thing it's good, the disadvantage is it was set, and since, with Headley, it continues to decrease. So even though they're, I think, a $0.25 back from the 1950s or 60s, whenever it was set, now they've lost some of that. So that's one disadvantage, and there's no way for them really to, because we're doing the renew and restore, exactly, keep our millage full, $0.5 mil. So that's one disadvantage. 4 years is a lot of work. It seems like we just get one pass, and the next thing you know, it'll be 24 before we know it. But the other hand is, by putting together a plan every 4 years, the road commission, the cities and the communities can show what they're going to be spending their money on. So I think it's easier for people to pass. Like, we're not just giving you money, we're giving you money for projects. And the same with our trail projects. We'll show them what we're going to be doing, spending the money on, so people know when they're passing that. And here again, obviously we got to get it in front of the BOC downtown, make sure they're supportive. And I agree 100%, Barb, is, there's a lot of people at this on the BOC that are supportive of trails. So use that to everyone's advantage. And people in this county support this. I mean, last trail, road millage passed 74, 76%. So use that to everyone's advantage and continue to, help us fund roads and trails in this county, something that people want.
And my last question is there a way for this road commission to be helpful in persuading the folks in Van Buren Township or the Wayne County Board of Commissioners to be supportive of that trail segment into Van Buren Township? Some of us have relationships with those people. And I don't know what their objections have been. So I don't know what the strategy would be, but Barb Fuller personally, would be happy to be helpful if there's any appropriate way to do that.
Yeah, I guess we'd be supportive. The township, Van Buren Township, Kevin McNamara, they're advocates, which is sort of getting representatives from Wayne County to acknowledge and think this, is a priority for the whole region. Because here again, it's not just, a trail that's in Washtenaw County or a trail that's in Wayne County. It's a regional trail, goes into, Jackson and Ingham, and, it's a statewide thing. So yeah, if there's elected officials, we've been reaching out, trying to do that. But if there's anyone at the road commission, commissioners that have connections, let us know, because anything we can do to, encourage them. Because a lot of this, we're getting money. So it might not even be the money part of it, but it's just getting their support, because we need to get a permit to work in their right of way. And sometimes they're like, well, we're not sure we want to do that. So like, if they tell us no, we really don't have an option, because it's not like, there's that much money. You have to be along roads a lot of times. Some of it's in parks, but yeah, if there's a way, if anyone knows, send me an email, send Kawhi an email, and I'd be happy to sit down, and if we can arrange such a meeting. We actually utilize Kurt Profit. He's helped assist us with the lobbying efforts, try to, pull people together. But the more pressure we can say, hey, this is, like I said, it's a regional thing that we're trying to make it better. And here again, Belleville's sort of a little bit like Manchester. They're really excited to say, if we could have these people bike from Ann Arbor to Ypsilanti through Belleville could use that, shot in the arm too.
Sure.
Yeah. Yeah. And this gap is, Roy talked about the significance on a regional basis. Once you get through Van Buren Township, I think that gap's about 5 or 6 miles. Then there's a trail, the Downriver Greenway, that goes all the way to Lake Erie. So, you look at the significance regionally, and this one gap is what we're focused on.
So what's their objection? Is it the road commission or the board of commissioners that are not enthusiastic?
Yeah, it's really the road authority, Wayne County Department of Public Service, whatever the road, they're not a road commission in Wayne County, whatever the current name is.
Department of Roads, I believe.
Yeah, so you got to go through their permit, and their permit department is less flexible than Washtenaw and other counties, and so they just like, I don't know. I remember working road projects, because we actually had joint road projects along Rawsonville Road, and Washtenaw was willing to fund, the project and put a signal up, and they were still at Bemis Road, and I'm trying to remember the other one, Cheryl.
Marks.
Marks. They just didn't want to work with us. They're like, well, this is a warranted signal, but they're just like, nope. Oh, okay. We'll let you do it if you rebuild our roads. Like, we're not going to rebuild all your road. We'll do the intersection. It was amazing, how they really are less, I don't know. It's hard to explain.
Roy, the directorship of Wayne County, again, I can't remember the correct title, but the directorship of that is still open. You can certainly apply.
I'm good right now.
Okay. I have a question
Sure.
before you go away. Number one, I noticed on that chart of things that people were interested in, the county park should spend money on. I was really disappointed to see that curling is so far down on the list. That is just an editorial comment. The question I have is, have anybody from county parks heard anything from Scioto Township about how they intend to get people using their trail alongside Zeeb Road over the Huron River?
Well, that's another hat I wear. I'm on the Scioto Township TAP committee.
Oh,
so
I didn't realize.
I'm the chair of that committee. So I know a little bit about that. So their plan is, to get down to Peters Road, then build a segment between Peters up. And so they're going to build a new bridge that will span the Huron River on the east side of Zeeb Road. That's their intent. Then we're working with Sweepster, formerly Sweepster, now it's Stanley, whoever.
Yeah,
To go
Stanley
into-
Infrastructure.
Yeah, to go into their parking lot and wind through the parking lot and then come back up there. We have another phase going next year. The bridge over the river will probably be in 23 or 24, and then same thing with the connection to the border just north of the tracks there by Sweepster. So once that gets connected, and we're also working with MDOT to do improvements on Zeeb Road over I-94. Let's talk about widening that sidewalk, and Representative Don Lazinski got $750,000 for the northern part, and also $750,000 for the bridge over Zeeb Road. So that'll probably be a project in 23, 24. So that's the goal, is building a separate bridge over the river is how it's going to be connected, and then come up Zeeb Road. Does that answer your question, Doug?
Well, I'm curious as to, since that's going to be by definition a new bridge, what's the timeline to get that approved through the federal government and the state and whoever else gets involved?
Yeah, that will be really state of Michigan, Natural Rivers, which is DNR, and Eagle. The good news is Natural Rivers will let you build a bridge next to a bridge. So Natural Rivers will probably sign off on it relative to Eagle. We'll just have to do a clear span. So it'll probably be a bridge that's about 200 feet long. That's what the other bridges have been, to span the river and go through all the other environmental. But parks, we've done 2 bridges. We have another one ready to build next year. Eagle signed off on, and I think we have 3 more bridges to go. So it's doable. Each bridge can be $1 million, just depending.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Any other questions for Roy or for Coy? All right, well, I would like to thank you very much for coming. Roy, I still remember way back in the late 90s when you asked me to attend a meeting with Peter Pollack, and we wandered along Huron River Drive on the concept of this project, and as all I could think of is, you guys are nuts. So it's kind of fun to see that this is actually taking place. And I agree, Washtenaw County is light years ahead. And I'm proud that this organization can play even a small part of what you've been able to accomplish.
And we're still nuts.
Well, that's true. But most people think Washtenaw County in general is nuts. So we're used to wearing that role ourselves.
Well, and I think we're saying that the Huron Waterloo Pathways Initiative, HWPI, has raised millions of private dollars that really made all of this go, right? Without them, I'm not sure this ever would have had the success that it has had. So Jeff Hardcastle, hats off to you and all the people that agreed to be helpful when he appealed to them.
Right, because prior to HWPI coming on board, Parks was building maybe 1 mile every 2 years or every 3 years. And then once we got the private money and the road millage money and all that started coming together, now we're building 3 to 5 miles each year. So yeah, we would have got it done, but it would have been another 20 years versus hopefully we can get it done in 5 years. So yeah, the private money has been huge. The road millage has been huge, and and like I said, your partnership, and here again, thank you, commissioners, for your support, because sometimes we need your support downtown to get that road millage on the ballot, and the support for these trail projects is essential. And here again, I think once people, commissioners realize how many people are using these, and the passion, and then you see all the private money that's coming in. People not only willing to support it by using it, people are really willing to write checks to see this thing get done. So it's really exciting. So thank you for your support.
All right. Well, again, thank you for coming. We wish you a very happy holiday and all the best in the new year. Hopefully you have some time off for a little bit and then obviously a big year ahead.
Exactly. Thank you.
Yep. Thanks, everybody.
Thank
Take
you.
care.
Thank you, Coy.
Bye-bye.
All right, so Cheryl, what else?
Well, unfortunately, I have a late addition to the agenda. If for those of you who may be aware, late on Friday, the Sixth Circuit Court of Appeals lifted the stay with respect to the vaccine mandate that had been previously put in place by the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals. So we're getting into a lot of legal logistics there, but what that basically means for us is that the vaccine mandate that was issued, the emergency temporary standard that OSHA put out in the beginning of November, that is currently back in effect. So what that is going to require is that any employer of 100 or more employees is required to have some form of a vaccine mandate policy in place. It looks like the current deadlines, and again, this is all very tentative right now, but it looks like the current deadline is that as an organization, we would need to have that policy in place by January 10th, and that it would need to be effective with respect to the mandate for vaccination or testing would take effect on February 9th. That's the current information that we have. We have yet to see, well, first of all, we expect that there's a high likelihood that all of this will be appealed yet again, and that this will end up in the Michigan Supreme Court, in which case there may be a pause that's put out for all of us. And if that was to happen, obviously we would let you know that immediately. But I have also not seen guidance from MIOSHA, although all preliminary indications were that MIOSHA was going to basically just mimic or rubber stamp what we are seeing at the federal level with respect to those requirements. I have reached out to MCRISP. We have not seen a formal statement come out of MCRISP yet. Although I'm hoping to still have something yet this week based on my conversation with Gail Cummings. They are working on a model policy for us at this time, but we don't have it in hand. But when I asked her, I mean, essentially these potentially could be some pretty quick deadlines, especially with respect to the fact that this organization obviously has a board meeting this afternoon. We have a board meeting on January 4th, and then we don't have any other short of calling a special meeting. We don't meet again prior to January 10th, if indeed that is one of the deadlines that's in place. So her recommendation, as well as what I'm reading from other human resource professionals, is that they are recommending that their clients, and similar to MCRISP, that we move forward, assuming that this is going to take effect or remain in effect. And then obviously if the Supreme Court rules or decides to put a pause on this, or if there is something that is conflicting that comes out from MIOSHA, obviously we will adjust. My least favorite word these days, pivot accordingly. But I guess what I was hoping to have as far as a conversation, obviously not asking for action out of this board, is that my strong recommendation is for this board to adopt a policy that would meet the minimum requirements as put out per the OSHA, what they call that ETS, the Emergency Temporary Standard, with respect to the vaccine mandate. And what that does allow is for a testing alternative for our employees. The reason why I feel very strongly that we allow for testing as an organization, obviously we will continue to promote the vaccine we have all along. We will continue to push the information out there to best educate and encourage our staff to do that. But I feel strongly that we also have people within this organization who have very strong personal opinions on that. We are short-staffed as it stands today. I don't know that we are in a position, I would worry very strongly with respect to retaining the current employees that we have that are very valuable to us, as well as recruiting in the current marketplace that exists out there. I do think that we have protocols in place to try to keep people as safe as possible. Currently, obviously, again, we strongly recommend the vaccine, but that we have protocols in place to try to protect them as best as we can as an employer. We've also, a preliminary opinion from our Labor Council is that if we go over anything beyond the minimum requirements under OSHA's ETS, we would need to negotiate that as a matter of with our TPOAM. And we are currently in contract negotiations already with them on a whole bunch of other matters. I mean, our contract just expired and we are still in contract negotiations, and that's going to complicate the ongoing bargaining that we currently have in place. So I share all of that with you. I guess I'm looking for some feedback, if at all possible. Certainly happy to answer questions, although more than likely I have more questions, just as many questions as the 5 of you do. I'll be happy to answer, or at least share what I know right now. And clearly, if this gets paused, I would not be asking for the board to take action on January 4th, but I just wanted to let you know that there may be a possibility that staff would bring forth a policy, and I've tried to outline what staff's intent would be with respect to that policy, potentially for action on January 4th, simply to keep us in compliance. Commissioner Fuller?
And I've expressed this sentiment to Cheryl as well. I firmly believe that the pandemic is something we're going to have to live with forever. That's kind of my attitude going forward. And I would suggest that a policy be brought to us in January, when our first meeting in January, that establishes a policy around the potential of a federal mandate. I think that's where we have the most solid ground to stand on with respect to adopting a policy. And if there's a way that to have a caveat that we have this policy that's tie-barred to the federal decisions. So if the U.S. Supreme Court throws this whole thing out, our policy would be put on pause, as you've suggested, Cheryl. So what I'm trying to do is be ready for whatever comes, but being prepared to protect the organization to the best of our ability. I think everybody knows where I stand on a vaccine mandate, but I have deferred to Cheryl and to Nicole with respect to the impact of that on our workforce. I'm dismayed that the numbers continue to tick upwards on the positive COVID diagnoses in our organization, acknowledging that not all of those are with unvaccinated people. There are fully vaccinated people that are having breakthroughs with COVID. And now with Omicron and whatever comes after that, I don't know my Greek alphabet that well, but we're not out of the woods on this at all. And I think we just have to figure out how we're going to live with it. So any recommendations that can be made by Cheryl and Nicole and the rest of the staff advising you, as well as the other 4 commissioners, I'm open to it. But I think we need to accept that this may be an eventuality and plan for it.
Thank you. That's exactly where we're at right now. I'd be happy to hear from others too. Commissioner Yamas?
So while this is like Barb, I have strong feelings about it, but I also have strong feelings about my personal right to be safe. And just as people used to be upset about not smoking in a room, I have a right to clean air. And someone has a right to smoke, go outside and smoke. As far as, and it conflicts with my long union standing, but I do believe that people still have a right to do it. So as we can craft a policy that will, you know, I'm in agreement that will respect some of the people that have some real strong opinions about whether they vaccinate or not vaccinate. They can do that as long as they also are respectful of other people who don't want to be around people who are not vaccinated. It goes both ways. It's just not a one-way thing, you know, and I agree that we need to be ready so that we can put forward whatever is going to keep us in line with the law and what needs to protect all people involved in our workforce. I also don't want to feel like, and I understand that, and I've seen it in other areas where people say they're going to leave. That can be true of any policy that we set forth, but when we set forth a policy that is based on safety of all, we need to keep that in mind. And that's, you know, that's what I ask, that we keep the safety of everyone and legally keep our liability as low as possible.
Yeah, I agree. And Commissioner Green, if I could just address Commissioner Yamas real quick, and then I'll certainly hear what you have to say. Again, my understanding at this time is within that policy, exactly what you just said, Commissioner Yamas, would be our attempt to balance. So for those that would choose to not be vaccinated, there is a mandatory testing requirement for them. My current understanding is that it's at least once every 7 days. Our expectation would be that it would be done on the employee's time and at the employee's expense, although right now it appears testing is free. I don't know if that would continue forward. They would also, anyone that would be unvaccinated and would be currently required to wear a face covering whenever entering a facility. I mean, right now we have protocols in place just because of where we're at with respect to COVID in numbers, case numbers, and all of those types of things. But certainly trying to have the safety protocols that are in place so that, yes, if they are exercising the decision to not be vaccinated, it is not putting the rest of us at risk, or at least we're doing the best that we can to minimize that opportunity and trying to, you know, really find that place that's best for our organization, really to continue operations. Because at the end of the day, that's what we're looking at, is being able to carry out the mandates that we are responsible for. Commissioner Green?
Yes. I'm assuming that whatever policy we draft will be in consultation with our legal team, right?
Yes, right now we've been relying primarily on McChrysip because they have a set of legal experts that they have been utilizing on this very topic. So that's been the legal experts that we have been relying upon. So hopefully we see that model policy. When I did speak with Gail Cummings yesterday, I explained to her the time frame for our organization. So we are hopeful to have something still this week from them that would be a model policy that we would be, you know, obviously, if not copying or plagiarizing, we would be relying heavily upon. But we certainly will make sure that it is compliant with everything that we need in order to move forward. Any other questions or comments?
Cheryl, is it true that the Washtenaw County Board of Commissioners instituted a vaccine mandate? Period.
Correct. Having read their policy, it does go a step further than what I am recommending. They do not allow for testing, although there is a directive in there that they do need to negotiate that with any of their unionized employees.
Commissioner McCollum, Commissioner Doug Fuller, any thoughts you wish to share at this time on this topic?
No.
I just think it is a good idea. I was wondering too, is this something that we'd have to prove that we were vaccinated? Would you have to show your vaccination card or whatever?
Yes, thank you for asking that. Yes, we would require proof of vaccination. And again, as Nicole's been looking into that, we'd make sure that we're following whatever is appropriate. Whether or not you are vaccinated appears currently that's not covered by HIPAA, but the vaccination cards themselves, any of that information would be covered by HIPAA. So we need to make sure that we are treating that information confidentially. But yes, we need to make sure we have proof of vaccination, and it isn't just a matter of someone saying, hey, yeah, I got the shot. We would, whether it's a photocopy of your vaccination card, or, in this day and age, there's MyChart and there's various sources of information that are independent and can document the vaccination.
It's also worth thinking about the ripple effect of adopting a policy like this and the impact that it will have on senior staff, on superintendents who are, kind of the front line saying, so didn't you? Why is your throat scratchy? What's going on? So it's going to be kind of a real shift in terms of expectations for staff to enforce or ensure compliance with any policy that we would adopt. And I don't know what that looks like. I assume Cheryl, you and Nicole and Alicia have talked about it, but there may come a time where we have to put additional resources into our HR team to be able to handle this and to guarantee the confidentiality and security that people are going to expect when they reveal personal information.
Yeah, I know that Nicole and Alicia take this very seriously. To date, Nicole has shouldered the burden of most of the COVID responsibilities. Obviously, it affects each and every one of us, and all of our supervisors hopefully are well versed on what the protocols are. But at the end of the day, the decisions are ultimately falling primarily to Nicole at this point in time. I don't know, Nicole, if there's anything that you'd like to add. If she's not currently, hopefully she's available. I know that she's had a lot thrown her way these days. So yes, we would treat that with all the confidentiality that is necessary. This is a highly sensitive topic. We respect it as such. We don't expect our supervisors to get involved into those details. And we would rely very heavily on Nicole and Alicia for that. Obviously myself acting as backup. I don't know, Nicole, if you, oh, there you are. If you want to add to anything I've just said.
So no, I've been listening. Unfortunately, there's just a lot of uncertainty in the situation, and I will continue to take on that full responsibility, keeping myself available 24/7 as much as possible. It's been easiest, I think, to have one main contact person for it, knowing who's off, trying to hunt down those close contacts. And then even when it'll come to collecting the data that we'll need with vaccination cards, et cetera, it's just become a regular part of the job. It doesn't feel temporary by any means. So it's just a part of my regular work day now. So it really isn't that much of a extra responsibility at this point.
Thank you. Commissioner McCollum?
Yes, I was wondering, I don't know if you know this yet, but some people that have been vaccinated don't want to get the booster. Some haven't. Is that something that would be in the policy, that you would have to get a booster also, or do you know that yet?
As I read it right now, there is not a requirement for the booster. The definition of full vaccination is the second shot if it's a 2-shot series, or just the 1 shot if it's the Johnson & Johnson singular shot. I don't know, Nicole, I don't believe we've seen anything yet with respect to boosters. I believe some organizations have done it voluntarily, but I don't believe that that is in the current requirements.
You're correct.
Thank you.
So as you can see, this is probably going to be one of the big items we're dealing with when we come back after the first of the year. And that's why Cheryl has done it, and Nicole have done a great job of explaining what we're looking at. We have now, what, over 24 positive COVIDs in our organization. It may be, I'm trying to keep track, but sometimes I don't add them in properly. And then you raised the point of the whole contact tracing piece, right? It's more than saying, I'm positive, I'm going home, see you after the quarantine period is up. Now there's all this contact tracing within our organization that has to be done as well. So, you know, thank you, commissioners, for your thoughts. I don't know whether Cheryl, your senior staff, want to weigh in at all, share their thoughts with us. This is a great time to have this broad conversation.
Sure, I'd be happy to open it up. I think it's sometimes we're sick of talking about it, but I'm more than happy to open it up. Commissioner Yamas, did you have a question before we did that?
One thing that I want to hope happen as you try to craft this as best we can is that the one portion that always does come to mind is that the quarantine time or when somebody gets sick, that does not start to be held against people in their attendance, in the attendance policy. You know, that was the one positive thing that came out, that previously, if people got a flu or something else, it was held against them on their attendance. But if people have to quarantine because of close contact, that we continue on that same vein about COVID, you know, and it could be COVID specific, but as people are forced to quarantine, even if they come and say, and it keeps on changing. I know that this animal, it just keeps on changing, you know. Yeah. I'm not even sure when the rules are, when you do have to quarantine, you know, if you know, someone at home has caught it, do I call, do I stay home? If you're fully vaccinated, you do, you don't. It just is a lot to keep up with. But that those that are forced to not come to work because of this are not punished in any way, or any negative impact happens to their employment record. I hope that we keep that.
Yep. You are absolutely right. It changes, seems like continually. That's why our response is call Nicole. So, and she is responsible for staying on top of it. And she can tell you this counts, this vaccination status counts here. It doesn't count there. If you have symptoms, how many days, da, 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 da. So that is one of the reasons why Nicole has singularly been responsible for making most of those decisions, because it is complicated. And also in the standard, again, as I read it, is exactly what you just described, that we certainly have situations now where people may be in an unpaid situation because the COVID pay per se, if you have to quarantine, has gone away. But we certainly would not be taking disciplinary action against anyone. We want people to be coming forth and being honest about, you know, their status so that we can handle things appropriately and minimize it within our organization, any impacts within our organization. So we will continue that practice. They would not be held. There would be no discipline should they be in an unpaid or finding themselves in what would normally be a disciplinary situation. There are, I believe there will be requirements that we do provide paid leave for time to get vaccinated. I believe that is in the current emergency standards. So certainly we would honor that. We had done that in the past. So that would be something that we would, as well as if there are one of the other questions that we have, which is still a question, is whether or not we would be required to give time off should symptoms arise from vaccination. And again, if that's the case, then we would certainly honor that as well. Any other questions or anything that Jim, Matt, Dan wanted to jump in on?
I have a question. Like we're here today, all of us. So if someone in the building found out, you know, they had COVID, would that affect all of us here or no? Okay.
It would not, but Nicole, that's a great example. Do you want to describe what you look at when you do contact tracing?
Yeah, so if someone is tested positive, I communicate directly with that employee to find out any close contacts that they felt they might have had in the previous 48 hours from either the positive test with no symptoms or from the day that their symptoms had started. If there was any close contacts, or say somebody calls and says they felt they had a close contact, the first question would be, are you vaccinated or not? If they're vaccinated and not showing any symptoms, they do not have to quarantine. If they are unvaccinated, they do. Now, if you've tested positive in the last 90 days and you are unvaccinated, you do not have to quarantine. So there's a lot of factors that go into it, but it is finding out if they had that cumulative 15 minutes within a 6-foot radius.
Clear as mud. But that is why, I mean, obviously we're about to do this practice session because we do have to be prepared for January for the in-person board meetings. But that is why we're also not having lunch together. So we are trying to, you know, I mean, do the things that we have to do. And as somebody said it earlier, I mean, at some level it's here and we do have to conduct business. For example, we had a meeting with Ypsilanti Township last week. They are having in-person meetings. So Matt and Anthony and I all went to that meeting. Normally we would have a few more people there because they would have been subject matter experts. Brent would normally attend those. A lot of times Mark McCullough will attend those because we have development or permit type questions that are going on. In that case, you know, we did not have Brent there intentionally. We did because he would be Matt's backup should we lose Matt, so to speak. And then we did not have Mark there. We were all masked. Anthony obviously has his own vehicle, but Matt and I drove separately. So those are all the types of things we're trying to do so that, you know, we are minimizing contact with each other. Should we have to do contact tracing, you know, I mean, if one of us was to have exposure or to test positive ourselves, we want to make sure that we're minimizing the consequences of that to the organization. So those are the types of decisions that we're all making and how we're trying to continue to do business, because that was a very important meeting. Ypsilanti Township is, you know, obviously one of our larger townships, and we need to continue to have that type of relationship and coordination with them. But we also don't want to take out the entire management team, at least within the engineering department, because of one meeting. Any other questions?
Cheryl, I'll just say from my perspective, I'm kind of done talking about COVID, but obviously it's still here, so we have to. And just want to acknowledge Cheryl and all her great communication, just keeping us informed with what's going on with the organization, or if there are issues, you know, just reassuring the organization that, you know, the contract tracing and the policies that are in place are being followed. So we're trying to minimize things as much as possible. And it's a delicate balance because we need to get our work done, but obviously we need to feel safe. And I feel like Cheryl has given the supervisors that flexibility to allow our employees to feel safe. Certainly we have the technologies, you know, Chris has helped with that. That's, you know, finance and IT, for instance, if they need to work remotely more than the 2 days, we have that flexibility. And I think employees really appreciate that. So, you know, and I fully support following the federal guidelines, whatever they may be, and just, you know, we have to be able to be flexible too. So, you know, we need to get our work done, but we need to do it safely. And I feel like we're doing the best we can under these unusual circumstances.
Yeah, thanks, Dan. I appreciate that. It has definitely been a team effort. You know, Nicole's been leading our COVID efforts, but certainly every time something new comes about, you know, we meet collectively. Whenever we do something like start having additional people working remote and whatnot, that certainly has got, you know, an IT component to it. and, you know, and Matt and his staff, what they're able to do. And then Jim's always saying, hey, remember, there's a lot of things we can't do remote. We still have a lot of people that have to report in person. So we're trying to put protocols in place to keep them safe as well. So for example, right now, most of our drivers are reporting from their personal vehicles straight to their county vehicles. And we're trying to minimize the amount of time that they are gathering or that they are coming into the buildings. Any other questions? All right, well, boy, I don't like following county parks with this nice, happy, upbeat, and then here I am like, you know, this giant wet blanket on everything. But unfortunately, that curveball got thrown to us late on Friday. We are seeing information come across over the weekend. I will stay on top of it along with everyone else here. So if we don't have to do anything on January 4th, no one will be more happy than myself. But certainly I just wanted us to be prepared if that is indeed the case, and to give you a sense of the policy that we would be intending to bring forth.
And again, I would encourage that we're prepared to take action on January 4th. If we postpone or table that item, we'll deal with that on January 4th. But to the extent that we can be ahead of the curve and not have this be a big disruption that takes place and throws everybody off track, we're better for it. We've done a great job in terms of the technology to be prepared for people who weren't working here, we're working remote. We've learned a lot about the benefits of that and the downsides of that. So as an organization, I think we're doing as well as we can, but this is no time to say, yep, we're good, we're done. We now have to put things in place so we can roll with it, whatever comes our way. Anything else?
Well, we do have a more fun thing to do here. Emily, do you want to give us direction on our practice session?
Sure, yeah. So if we are ready to do that, I think that we should take a little bit of break, a little bio break here before we get together. So I don't know if we want to meet at 11 or 11:05 in the boardroom, but we're going to do our practice session. So the commissioners, if you can bring your laptops, and if you are all of you connected to your power cables right now. Okay, if you are not and your battery's getting low, please bring your power cable as well. So if you bring your laptop and meet us down in the boardroom, Cheryl, myself, and then Chris and Josh will be in the boardroom. We've asked the directors and Aaron and I think Nicole's going to join us too, to stay or to join us virtually. So Jim, Matt, Dan, Nicole, Aaron, if you want to rejoin the same Zoom link at about 11:05, we'll get everything started and we'll do our practice run. And then I believe lunch is here. Our box lunch has been delivered. So once we get through the practice session, then we can distribute lunches and everybody can eat in their own, I believe Cheryl said, their own respective hidey holes today. So we could do that. And so let's meet, what do you think, at like 11:05 in the boardroom?
Sure.
Okay.
Bring your masks.
Bring your mask. Yep.
Yes,
And we've got,
yes.
yep. And we'll go over everything together in the boardroom and with those joining us virtually. So.
Anything
right.
else, Commissioner Fuller, before we officially end this recording?
I do not believe so. A motion to adjourn would be in order.
So moved.
Thank you.
Support.
Thank you. All those in favor say aye.
I think we better do roll call. Sorry, guys.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, you're right. So, Erin, are you still there?
Yes, I am. Commissioner Joanne McCullum,
Yes.
Commissioner Rod Green,
Yes.
Commissioner Doug Fuller,
Aye.
Commissioner Gloria Gamis,
Yes.
and Commissioner Barb Fuller.
Yes, we are adjourned. Thank you for keeping me honest here.